Welcome back. This is the Scaling Secrets podcast. Feargal O'Sullivan is here, and Feargal is the founder and chief executive officer of USAM Group Inc., which is a proven business leader with the rare ability to blend business acumen and deep technical knowledge. So Feargal is going to be talking about things like how he successfully closes multi-million-dollar deals that address critical business challenges. He's had all kinds of success in the financial space, so we'll find out about him, about his secrets, and how we can apply those secrets and so much more. So, Feargal, glad to be speaking with you.
I'm delighted to be here, Robert. Thanks for having me.
Glad to have you.
Yeah,
Likewise, it is a two-way street as far as the excitement goes. And so,
yeah.
why should our audience be excited? What are you all about? What is your passion? What's your focus?
So my real interest is working on newer and more innovative technology. I'd spent time both at the larger organizations, thousands or tens of thousands of employees, and I spent time working with some of the more nimble startup companies with tens to hundreds of employees. And much as I love the success that you can have solving major problems at the big places, I just constantly gravitate back towards those people that are coming up with game-changing ideas, and those are the smaller companies. So my background has really been in financial services technology now for almost 30 years. It doesn't sound so good when you say it out loud. But no, I've just been in New York City now for that long, and almost all the time in this space, always trying to come up with new solutions for trading better, for banking better, for complying with security, complying with regulation, and really helping, just the flow of money be better for everybody, from the richest down to the poorest.
Nice. And
Mm.
money makes the world go round, and it's
Yes,
it's
it
just a
does.
but it's such a weird concept when you think about it, right? Like it doesn't
Yeah,
even exist anymore. It's just like
yeah,
numbers, and there's never like enough of it, and there might
correct.
not be it might be too much or not enough, and it's just it's a weird thing to think about.
Yeah,
But it's built into our lives, and
yeah,
like whenever you look into these things like you're mentioning, like the cutting edge, it
yeah.
makes your brain hurt. Think about
It,
all the things that are done with artificial intelligence
intelligence.
and
Yeah,
trading algorithms, and there's just so much
yeah.
happening. But what do you think is a good jumping off point? Is there something that you've seen in the financial services industry
Yeah.
that's like gotten you excited, or is that maybe is noteworthy to talk about today?
Yeah, well, look, the most interesting thing about the financial services industry is that there isn't really a product. Most every other industry, pharmaceuticals make medicine, you know, the media makes content, Apple makes iPhones, right? Financial services, as you said, is just numbers on a computer somewhere. It's a spreadsheet. It's one massive conglomeration of spreadsheets, in fact, from thousands and thousands of companies all over the world agreeing to certain standards. And it's a fiat currency, meaning it's built on the trust of the government to support the currency that we're basing it all off on. So what's really interesting then is that the entire business is computers. And I started in this business in the mid '90s, and at the time, most shops, barely had an electronic cash register. And I'm exaggerating slightly, but I mean, the banks were so far ahead. Like you could go to a hole in the wall and take out money, and guaranteed, that it was from your account, and you got the amount that you were expecting, and it was all done anywhere in the world electronically. I mean, amazing. Um, and for a long time, the first, say, 10 or 15 years that I was in the business, I would have said that the financial services were ahead of everybody, particularly on the reliability of it. Like, of all the things we talk about, like launching, a mission to Mars or something, I could see you have to be careful. But the next most important thing is your money, right? Like everybody knows how much money they have in their pocket. They could tell you right now. And, so if you're a bank, you better not get it wrong. There's an awful lot of focus on that. But I would say by around the 2010s, the sort of trend changed to where with, mobile phones and tablets and computers and internet cloud, all that stuff, it actually changed to where companies like Google and Facebook and those guys were doing some really, really very impressive stuff. But now I think it's starting to come back again. And I'm really starting to see the financial services are taking the technology to the next level. And AI is clearly a big part of it. It's, there's a lot of interest in ChatGPT and so on, but it's like there's, data science has been a huge part of trading ever since I've been in it. Quantified analytics and analysis and all of this stuff that, are been having PhDs in maths coming out of colleges to do this analysis of financial services for decades. They're really using AI in a major way, and I think that you probably start to see much more innovation expanding even faster in our industry over the next 10 years, to where financial services will lead the way again.
Well, wonderful. And, I like what you're saying here about the reliability, right? That, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, like, you said you've been at this 30 years. You're making me
Mm.
think of when I was growing up, sometimes the power would be out. And I mean,
Yeah,
you think about these days, I mean, if you went to an ATM and it was broken, you'd be
yeah,
thinking, like, I need to switch my banks. Or if the
exactly.
money didn't come out, or if you went to the
Yeah,
app and you couldn't check your bank balance, like, you would be
yeah,
like, there are way better solutions out there. So, like, our
yeah,
expectations are heightened, and we probably all take for granted at this point just how just reliable it is. It's like you turn on a
correct.
faucet, you expect water to come out, you expect to be able to instantly. I should be able to transfer money, receive money, check my balance, get cash out, do
Yeah.
all of these things. And I mean, it's taken us a while to get here. So in your experience and all of your adventures, are there any like disasters or
Mm-hmm.
like panic moments that you've had with yourself or with these companies, or just like
Mm.
kind of the interesting drama where something went wrong and you had some stress to try to figure it out?
Yeah, well, there are many of those cases actually. Um, the One of the more famous ones was something called the flash crash, which happened around 2010, which was when some rogue algorithms went off and selling short on stocks, and the market crashed quite rapidly in a matter of an hour or something. It had dropped to several thousand points back when the Dow, I think, was at about 12,000 or something. So, you know, these things do happen, and there were people that were impacted, but it was generally the people that were the ones running these algorithms and doing it, right? Which is the caveat. And, for whatever reason, they had a mistake in their code, they had a mistake in their application, they hadn't tested. It did snowball a little bit, and the industry had to adapt and recover, and it did a lot of repair after that crash to make it fair on the people that were hurt through no fault of their own. Um, but that was one great example. There was another company that went out of business when a developer was testing an algorithm, didn't realize he was in production. That was in 2013, I think, a company called Gecko, and they've acquired since. It does happen quite a bit. There's all sorts of fault tolerant mechanisms built in after the fact, particularly for trading, but also on banking in general. So that if you send money to somebody and there's a problem along the way, you're able, this is why we have middlemen. You're able to go and do some research and file a claim and say, I sent some money, it didn't arrive or whatever, and they can trace and track it. Sometimes it's a bit more manual than you'd like to think. Not manual in terms of getting pieces of paper, but looking up database tables and running queries and things and matching them. And a lot of that is where the innovation has been happening in the fintech space over the past, say, 5 to 10 years, where you have Zelle and all these other capabilities. But you'll notice that even they're having the situations where I think Zelle even says, listen, when you send this money, it's gone. A lot of the other Cash App, all these other ones, don't do the wrong account, don't fall for phishing and these types of problems, because you wanted it instantaneous. Well, the good news is the money went straight over to the other person's account. The bad news is if you did it wrong, you're not getting it back. And so there's a constant balance, I think, in the industry between being able to recover from mistakes or being able to have more of that real-time dynamic thing. And I think the financial industry is still, constantly fighting that battle.
Yeah, and
Mm.
some scary battles for sure. And
Mm.
like you said, figuring out the balance of, do I want this to be like fast and easy and
Yeah,
one way and irreversible, or like a dispute process, or should it be like slow and reliable? So a lot to
exactly.
navigate there. And you
Yeah.
mentioned that you've worked with just these crazy different scales, right?
Yes.
Companies of all sorts of sizes. And so we're talking here to some of these entrepreneurs that are growing their companies, right? Their
Yes.
companies are on the way up and they're
Hmm.
exciting, but also maybe scared, and also maybe, outside their comfort zone and figuring
Sure.
out those skills and working and doing all those things that need to be done.
Yeah.
So, what sort of advice do you have for
Mm.
the people out there who are building a company? Like, what should they
Love
be
it.
on the lookout for? What have you learned from the fintech space?
Yeah. Well, this has been my exclusive area of focus for 10 years. USAM Group is now 10 years old. We've worked with somewhere around 65 different companies, and at different stages. We work with some very early ones, but typically we try to get them a little bit further down the road where they're more established with several clients in production and repeatable models. But I think there's sort of two things that I would suggest to any of these founders when they're thinking about their business. The first one is to really try to have a good sense of their value proposition. Like, what is the problem you're solving? And is it serious enough that people will pay you money for it? So you could have had a problem in your company, and that's generally one of the better ones. Is like you're working at a company and you see a problem and nobody wants to fix it, and you can't get through the politics to fix it. So you quit, you come up with a solution to it, and you go call them up and you say, "Hey, I've got this solution that fixes the problem you have." And for some reason, they always buy that. I don't know why they wouldn't listen to you when you were there, but they'll probably listen to you when you're not there anymore. Even with that one sale, it's like, yeah, but is there another one, right? So sort of proving that there is a market for what you're solving, that's step one. Step two, and this is the one that I think most people don't think about properly, is recognizing what it takes to be successful. So it's great that you have the product, it's great that you're solving a problem, and it's great that you even figured out the value of that. But you have to recognize that people will not call you. They won't know you exist. They didn't even hear of you. How are they ever going to find you? It is half of your work to get yourself out there and your company out there and your product out there and in front of your prospects. And they always underestimate that. I think we're going to build the brilliant product and then I'll just get a meeting and I'll do one meeting and I'll close a deal. And it never ever happens. It's all about being in there for the long haul. We've done a lot of statistics and a lot of analysis on the data that we've been capturing over 10 years. And, when you're coming into a market with a new company and a new product, okay, and you're selling, and this is like enterprise sales we're talking about now. So we're probably talking 6 to 7 figure deals. On average, close to 31 months reach $1 million target. Right now, you can speed that up by spending more money, but you can't dramatically speed it up. We found that you could probably, if you double the money, you could probably, reduce you'd probably take 29% of the time off of that. And this is across a range of firms that we've worked with now and over the past 10 years, which we had COVID and things that have various implications. But strictly speaking, it's pretty consistent. You need to have a 2 to 3 year runway. You better have that because that's likely what it's going to take. And you better have the money to fund the sales and marketing of your product, which should be close, if not equal, to what you're spending on building the product. And if you cut short either one of those, you're putting your company at risk. So I think that's my biggest piece of advice is don't underestimate what it takes to get out there and sell and market your offering.
I think that's a huge insight, and you're so right. And that's even
Hmm.
part of why you're here. And I'm sure on many other podcasts, right? You
Yeah,
can't just be the best kept secret. You have to
exactly.
get out there and spread your message and repeat it and find new audiences and always be networking and figuring out just who am I talking to. And it's probably is counterintuitive and
Yeah,
probably unexpected, right? Because you think,
yeah,
well, I'm not a salesperson, I'm not a marketer, I'm
yeah,
just this coder of this
yeah.
this banking algorithm or SaaS or whatever, and it's like
Correct.
that's important, but so much more is just so much extra time and work of
Yes.
just getting the word out, getting the message out. I love
Yeah,
that.
look, you really said it, Robert. It's like a lot of engineers and a lot of founders are engineers, right? They feel like, well, I don't want somebody to come in and sell me. Don't sell me. Tell me why I need your database over the other database, or why I should buy your laptop over the other laptop. And the underestimating two things. First of all, their own natural biases. Everybody wants to be sold to. We want to be listened to. That's the first thing. Listen and understand. We want the salesperson to understand why we're here. Why are we talking to you? What is our problem? And then we want them to guide us and tell us, like, this is why we think we should. You should look at our product versus somebody else's. So you have to overcome your own biases. Everybody has them, but you also have to realize that no company, not even a startup company, even my own company, now we're about 15 employees, right? And you would think you'd just call me and I'd buy. No, there's I don't want to say a committee. There's always a consensus within any organization. And the bigger the organization, the bigger the consensus required. And you might have a champion who's very, very keen, but you have just, there's probably 20 people you have to get to either agreeing to buy or not disagreeing. And that's the really hard one. Like, you could have just, no. One person can say no, right? But you got to have 20 people to say yes. If any one of them say no, you lose out. And so that is a sales job. That is like finding who are all these various people and making sure that if they aren't at least saying yes, then they better not say no.
Here, I was talking to a B2B sales guy about this the other day. How, like, well, there might be like a champion in your group, but there might be a blocker, and
Yeah,
kind of bringing the blocker down a bit is just as
yeah.
important as amping up that champion there. And so
Yeah.
it seems like just people skills are really important here, and just kind
Mm-hmm.
of seeing who you're dealing with, and also just the more kind of modern way people tend to talk about sales is it's more of like a kind of a gentle, like meeting someone in the middle. They have a problem, they have all these other alternatives, and need to kind of just like listen to their needs, and find out what it is that need to be solved, because it's not just code, right? It's not just computers.
Correct.
People are actually using these solutions, and it hurts your brain sometimes to
Yeah.
go to drill down to like the very bare fundamentals and think in those terms. But it's like we need to solve this problem and stop making things so complicated for us. And so,
Yeah.
as far as you in your journey and the
Yeah.
things you've seen and the companies you helped, has anything really surprised you? Has anything really just like knocked you flat and made you change your thinking?
Yeah, well, so very specifically with USAM Group, when I started the company, my theory was that I was building a sales and marketing organization similar to what you might have in a big company. So, for example, take Microsoft. They have business lines, right? So they'll have the Windows business line, the Microsoft Office business line, the Microsoft Azure business line, several other business lines, Xbox, whatever. And then they'll generally have some kind of an centralized horizontal sales and marketing function. And so you might be the global account manager for a big bank for Microsoft, and you're responsible for selling all of those verticals. So my idea was, well, why don't we provide that? That's a great model, by the way. It works so well, and you can really look after your clients, and you understand them, and you can help them where they need help, and help them one area one year, and then the next year they have a problem in the other area, and now you can step in on that. And so it really keeps the engagement great. So my idea was, can we replicate that with startups and earlier stage companies, and say to them, why don't you share the cost of that horizontal function with other startups? And now you'll have engagement with all these accounts ongoing constantly. So when you join the pool, it's just a matter of, like, I might be in talking to somebody, I don't know, at Morgan Stanley, and I'd say, hey, what are you doing in this area? And they, oh, I'm interested in that. Great, I have this new vendor. So that was the idea. Now, I thought that, people would really get their act together and then they'd call me. Well, Robert, they didn't, or they don't, or they often still don't. And so we've had to actually expand a little bit to say, like, okay, it's great that you have a product, maybe you even have several clients in production, things are going relatively well, but if you're the founder-led sales stage still, where it's really relying on your relationships and as the founder and your knowledge of the problem and the solution and all of that, there's a big gap. There's a famous book by Jeffrey Moore, Crossing the Chasm. I don't know if you're familiar with that one, but I recommend it if even today. I think it's still solid. And it just talks about this, the part for companies growing from that early founder-led sale to the full stage where you have a whole sales team and you basically have demand coming inbound. And he just goes, because and if you're great at selling your own product and you bring in me or anybody else as a salesperson, I'm sorry, we're not as good as you. I didn't come from that background. I don't have your experiences. I don't know why you came up with the product. I don't have any of that. So you have to really equip me very, very, then you are able to go and sell yourself. And so we've started doing that now. We sit down with them, we go like, look, it's great that you can do this, but and that's why I said they need this time. They need to set in their mind that it takes time to grow the revenue when you're crossing that chasm, because we have to figure out how to be able to take an ordinary person. And if you need a superstar salesperson, then your product's not any good. Like, you've got to be able to take C quality people and help them to sell. So we spend a lot of time, working with the founders, trying to really uncover that value proposition, boil it down to something as simple as possible that me or any of my team could memorize and understand and get it. And we understand the industry. So as long as we know what the problem they're solving, we've been in a good enough spot to do that. But we need to be able to very quickly get the person's attention, explain to them what we think we're addressing, see if they have the problem, and qualify it. We got 30 seconds or a minute maybe, or 2 sentences in an email, and that's it. And that's very difficult. A lot of these founders, oh, let me tell you about all the features it has. It's like, you don't have that time. I don't have that time, and they won't give me that time. I've got like 30 seconds. So we do a lot more of that now before we start going out and then asking our sales team, hey guys, here's a great new product, off you go and sell it. And that was probably the single biggest lesson, was that prep work. I mean, it's just like anything, preparation before, cut, what is it, measure twice, cut once, right, when you're doing carpentry. And it's the same thing with sales. Like, make sure you have your message really tested and validated and confirmed, then start going out. Because if you go out with the wrong message, you'll everybody's time, and you'll your opportunities. You get to call these people once every 6 months or once a year just to catch up on how you're doing, what's going on. And if I say the wrong thing, that it's another 6 months to a year before I'm talking to them again. They won't give me the time of day.
Okay. So it's like all of this hinges on this idea of we need to put in the work to really simplify things, right? They say
Yes.
that like, if you can't explain what you do to a fifth grader or a 5-year-old, then you don't understand it yourself. And
Yes.
we've all dealt with that in our lifetime. We've dealt with that person who just refuses to document, refuses to
Yeah.
explain, and then they have all kinds of scribbles, and it makes sense to them, and that's great, but you need to make it make sense for the rest of us, and maybe repeat and reiterate and hit things from different angles, but also keep things condensed so that way it's not 50 pages long. And so I imagine that some people have trouble tapping into this simplicity mindset because
Yes.
it is boring, but
Yes.
without it, we can't be a leader of people, and we can't
Yeah.
shortly and succinctly sell our message. So do you have any advice as far as tapping into this, as far as like this idea that our interface needs to be simple,
Yes.
our script needs to be simple? How do we
Yeah.
force our minds into pursuing the simplicity?
So Deirdre Sullivan, who works as our head of marketing, has a great quote. She says, everybody who writes software has to be sentenced to use it for at least a year. And I think it's just so on the money, right? It is absolutely critical. I've actually, in the help desk, I used to answer the phone with people at BlackRock, the big money managers now, and small firm at the time. And I would get people who were making, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars, asking me how to print and things like that, and admittedly, Windows 3.11 at the time, Windows for Workgroups 3.11, it was pretty. The iPhone changed the game. The expectations now of people at work has been set by the home. It used to be the way around. In the 90s, you had a great computer at work and you were lucky to have an ordinary computer at home. Now it's flip opposite. And so, if you can get your developers to know that they're going to have to probably use this thing, they will be much more inclined to simplify it. You also need to really put that time and effort in yourself. I mean, product management and design, user experience is a huge aspect of all software development now. And then on the messaging and sales, like we use a sort of a pyramid model. We tried starting with the very deep technical stuff at the bottom, like white papers, user manuals, detailed patent applications, and then moving up a layer, simplifying it into things like websites, brochures, then working it up into one-page overviews, then bringing it up into an elevator pitch, then bringing it up into 2 sentences for an intro email, and then maybe a 5-word slogan. And its message has made it through every single layer that is really, really the important one. That's what your slogan is. And so if you haven't done all the deep work, it's hard to know if the slogan is really, really the key one that you got. And it's the same with the code. Make it simple. KISS, right?
Yes,
Keep
keep
it.
simple, silly, or
There
whatever.
you go. You're being very polite, yes.
But I think that's amazing. This idea of the pyramid, and where you start off with just the sea of all the mess,
Yeah,
and then figure out the more condensed messaging, and is in all of those.
yeah,
That's what pulls it all together. That's
correct.
cool, because like you think of, if someone asked you to explain Windows
Yeah.
in a 5-hour video, of course you could say this screen, that you
Hmm.
could probably give a minute version, a 5-minute version, a 30
Yes.
second version, and that just distills it to the core essence. And then, based on how much space you have, or if that's like
Yeah.
time on the phone or whatever, or then like what to fit in there. And
Yeah.
that's super cool and super crazy. And so, as
Yeah.
far as talking about you and some scaling secrets and the
Yeah.
advice that you share, is there anything that we left out of our conversation? Is there a question that you wish I'd asked you that I haven't asked you?
The only question would be, should you do it at all? Do you really want to get into the startup world? Because tricky, it's tough. Like I've been at it for 10 years now, and that's it. It's been tougher than even I thought it would be. And so one piece of advice is, again, when you're thinking about the decision to possibly leave your job in a cushy place to go and create this startup, please do it, but make sure that you have thought it through. Don't we see on the news or Facebook and Google and everybody suddenly overnight success type things, and they weren't overnight successes. But most companies are not overnight successes. If they're good, they're solid. They work their way through. They will make money. You'll make money. You will be more, challenging and enjoyable and rewarding at the end. But it will be harder. There's not quite like just cruising on in at 9 o'clock and making a cup of coffee and chatting about the game and not worrying too much about work in a big organization that you just can't do in your own startup.
I think that's very helpful, that if we want to make a life change, right? If we say,
Yeah.
well, I'm an employee, I'm not sure how much longer I want to do this, I want to go to a startup, you're saying be informed. And
Mm-hmm.
when I was younger, I was afraid that if I was more educated, if I read the books or listened to the podcasts or
Yeah.
watched the YouTubes, that I would like talk myself out of it. And I guess
Yeah.
that's a danger. That's a trap to fall into. Like,
Yeah.
are you doing research and you really don't want to do that startup and you're
Sure.
looking for reasons to do it? But if you're really excited about it, then just have the fact, know what you're getting yourself
Correct.
into, which might include the risk and the hard work and
Yeah.
the hours. And if you're okay with, and the uncertainty, but if
Yeah.
you're okay with all that, then this is a path that you should pursue. And it's not for everyone, and that's okay. But if
Exactly.
it is for you, then be someone who loves learning and just know what the future holds for you. And
The,
speaking of
yeah.
the future, Virgil,
Yeah.
what is the future for you and your company? What are you excited about? What's coming soon?
Well, my big excitement is to start to take some of the analysis that we've done on the sales experience of all of these companies and start to both publish it and get feedback and input from other people and see if we can come up with better roadmaps for firms so we can set their expectations more realistically, right? Like we all want to be that unicorn that just pops like that. Nobody wants to be the one where we slog on for 20 years and, just about make a living. We're mostly going to be in the middle though, right? So we're really coming up with a roadmap to sort of say to people, this is the extremes and here's where you're likely to be. These are the things you can do to try to increase the odds in your favor. And then we've spun out a software product off of that, which we call Sales Slicer, and we're going to be really pushing that very hard this year and beyond to say to firms, hey, this is a great way to help you on that path, so that you will both, more likely to succeed sooner, but also to have reasonable expectations of when you will succeed and how much effort it's going to take.
I love that. Well, this is an exciting concept, and you hear this a lot of blaze a trail in a certain way, but don't try to reinvent the wheel if someone's already done it. And of course, your company is unique and is going to amazing places, but wouldn't it help to just know some data and to know about what you've done right and what you've done wrong and what to watch out for? So this sounds like an amazing solution as far as what you're publishing and as well as the software. So how can people find out about Sales Slicer as well as your company in general?
The best is just to go to our websites, USAM Group, USAMgroup.com, and salesslicer.com, as it's spelled, as you would expect it to spell it. And then also we have some great stuff on LinkedIn as well, and you're going to start seeing us promoting more materials and stuff on that on a constant basis over the next year. And please reach out, friend me, and reach out with any questions. I'd be happy to talk to anyone.
Yeah, do all the things, right? Visit the website, go on the social medias, subscribe, because there's so much noise these days that if you only go to one site and you don't come back, then you might forget. But if you subscribe in multiple places, then it will stay in your feed and stay in your subconscious, and this will be a path that you do instead of just something that added to your own noise. And so as we're wrapping down our conversation here, Feargal, I like to put my guests on the spot at the very end. It's super scary. I ask them for a quote or lesson that they think might help our listeners as they're embarking on their journey. So what comes to mind just as far as a random quote or lesson that could help us out?
Oh, that's a great one. Well, if I probably would have gotten a better quote if
you prepared.
Yeah. You know what I'll do? I have a degree in philosophy, actually, and one of my favorite philosophers is the godfather or the grandfather of Western philosophy, is Socrates, and he had a great quote, which I think is really good in business. So forget about any philosophical or religious aspects of it. Just think of this from the business perspective. I think it applies equally well. He said, "To know is science, to believe is ignorance." So you can believe whatever you want. Your product's great. Everyone's going to buy it. You're going to be super brilliant. It's amazing, amazing, right? But that's probably a bit ignorant. Better to go and know about it. So get out there, get the facts, get the details, get the data. And that's exactly what we were just talking about. If you have the information, you have the data, then you can really prove your case much better.
I love it. I'd rather have both if possible, or more tools at my disposal.
Exactly. You should you believe in yourself and go for it. There's got to be a certain amount of that. But
they don't have to be mutually exclusive.
No, but get down there and science too.
Wonderful. Well, it's been very exciting, and I've learned a lot speaking with you, Feargal, and people should go to those sites. And thank you very much for stopping by.
I appreciate it all. Thanks a million, Robert.
All righty. So recording's done, and then this will go to the team, and they'll be in touch with